Greetings, mind crafters, and welcome to another exciting Mindcraft discussion on this glorious day. And I like to say that because I'm not super weather affected that much. It's glorious to me, whether it's sunny or definitely if it's snowing. And even the rain's pretty okay because I find it contemplative. Within reason. If it's going on like day 8, then maybe it's a little much. But for the most part, it's a glorious day, right? Big fat gift. So my name is Kimberly Quinn, and I'm so pumped today to have another Mindcraft discussion. Which is about helping people. This is my whole thing, right? My whole shtick, my whole mission is to help people learn to become the boss of the brain. I mean, this is so important. And so today's topic is very much wrapped around the foundation of Minecraft, which is as within, so without. So some of I've been on a little bit of a Richard Carlson jag lately, so I want to do a little shout out there. And just because I do a shout out, I'm talking about the majority of this stuff in Minecraft anyway. I'm really kind of huge. Maybe it's the professor in me. But if I just even read something or overhear something or watch a YouTube on something and it inspires me to do a topic on whatever it is, I think it's super important to give a shout out to that person. Plus it just spreads the love because then you can go and look up whomever it is I said and go read some more or listen to some more or whatever like that. And so Richard Carlson is the author of the Don't Sweat the Small Stuff book series, and he's got a bunch of them. And I think I've got most of them. He's got the original one, and then he's got the one with the family, which is where my inspiration is coming from today. He's got Don't Sweat the Small Stuff with Money. He's got just a whole bunch of them. But the whole idea of these is that when we use our cognitive juice to get all worked up over, the day-to-day, not to say it's not annoying. Somebody gives you snark at work or they're trying to undermine you, all that behind the back stuff, and it's legit not okay, right? We're not saying that. We're just saying it's the overreacting part. It's the that because here's the thing, life is not an emergency, right? It's a series of quizzes, and it's not even, thankfully, even usually an urgency. So his whole series of books is about, if we go around sweating the small stuff, there's not a lot of juice to deal with the big stuff. So plus it's just a more pleasant ride, right? When we don't sweat the small stuff, it's a more pleasant ride. So this whole idea is as within, so without. The mind is the control center. Remember that. So some people say, "Oh, I'm too busy. I can't." Who's in charge of your schedule? Or this happened or that happened, and it doesn't mean that that's not all legit. Sometimes it can be, super annoying. On the scale of curveballs, right? There's the smaller petty stuff and the snark. Then there's the whole middle range where, it has to be a conversation because, something just needs to happen because somebody did whatever. Or we're super uncomfortable. We just have to get out of a situation. And then there's all the way over to toxic. So we're not saying that people get a pass. We're not saying that. We're also not saying that it's necessarily a situation with one individual. Sometimes life gets hectic and super chaotic, and that can be a time management thing. That can be, and I've experienced this firsthand, so I got to just own that one right now, right out of the gate. It can be you've got a really tight schedule, which can work, which was working for me just fine. I don't even remember what happened. It wasn't a DEFCON 4 situation, but when I had such a tight schedule about, it was like 8 or 10 years ago, it works okay because I like, especially with my fast mind, I like juggling a lot of balls in the air. That's actually when I'm sort of at my optimal, functioning capacity. That's when I end up really getting it all done. Well, that works fine until, life takes a turn. And I don't even mean like a big turn, like a health thing or something. It's just you had planned for whatever, and now you have to drop all that because your kid was sick at school, so you just lost a half a day. Because where our kids went to high school was an hour drive each way, something like that. Or maybe they're not even sick, but when they started to drive, this did happen over and over. My God, AAA was some of the best money my husband and I ever spent. We had one son run out of gas in the parking lot at least 3 times. Then we had the kid who locked herself out constantly. So it might be something that's not even like a big yank, but you have to drop what you're doing in the workday, drive an hour, get the kid, and drive back an hour, and also maybe wait till they're done with sport. I mean, it just throws a wrench, right? So we're talking about when you keep a schedule that's that tight, even if you're doing well, some small things happen or just traffic or whatever, then it all goes to hell in a handbasket. And then we have just that situation of overwhelm, and I know that my mind crafters talk about the overwhelm a lot, and that's because, I'm in this wonderful niche of mine working with young adults, and I tell them because I absolutely love them. I like to think and say them fluent in young adult. I just absolutely love them. They're enthusiastic. They have the world by the ass, and they're out to make a difference, and they're so non-judgmental. This generation is incredibly accepting, and that just is also wonderful to be around, and I'm super proud of them for that. And that said, they're also the most anxious and depressed generation of young adults the United States has ever seen. So this doesn't have to be about young adults because seasoned adults certainly get overwhelmed. You're in a different life stage. You've got kids getting married and having babies, and it's all great. It's all wonderful. Yeah, like I know 3 out of the Fab 5 are living in different corners of the country right now. So, even though that's wonderful and we're proud of them, there's been a lot of flying back and forth, and it can seem like it gets chaotic, or you can just have stuff happening at work that may be like politics, and we've all experienced that. Politics are everywhere. And just you put it all together. Put life stage stuff wherever you land there, young adult, somewhere in the millennial range, midlifer, which apparently caps off at 60. So I have two more years to be able to say that. Or you're dealing with aging parents. It doesn't matter. If your life is hectic and chaotic, the point is most of that not being calm thing is not what's going on around you. Think about it. There's only so much in life we can control, and control is a huge illusion. My friend Bjarne used to talk about that all the time. The whole sense of that, controlling any most of it is a complete illusion. So we got to take a peek at that. So when we are feeling out of control, we're feeling chaotic, we are feeling overwhelmed, and this thing is that the thing is here is that this is typically doesn't mean what's going outside of it isn't legit. We're not saying that though. If we go back to the thoroughbred thing with the jockey, right? The thoroughbred's this beautiful, majestic powerhouse of an animal, just gorgeous, with a little 85-pound jockey riding on it and steering it and giving it direction. That thoroughbred goes where the jockey tells it to go. So this is what we're talking about here. We can get control over the thoroughbred mind with our little jockey selves, and we really need to look at that. And that when there's all this overwhelming chaos, and we're telling people we're too busy, when in reality we're in charge of our own schedule, really need to look at that, and it can be humbling for people because we don't really want to think or entertain. We don't want to entertain the thought that our own degree of inner peace, right? Of inner peace, meaning the mind and our mind peace, our heart peace, feeling spiritually in balance, feeling in balance in general, and this sort of equanimity or homeostasis of mind, body, spirit is out of whack. We don't often like to think that this is this is ours to own. It just people don't want to do that, and so because then we have to take accountability and deal with it. And I would say that's why I'm going to say we because I just explained I've been there. It's a lesson that I think that's like a quiz we quiz that we continue to learn right through our lives. I think it gets easier and easier, but seems to keep popping up, at least for me. So Richard Carlson, PhD, author of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, says many people have a strong resistance to this strategy, again, of checking, right? The inside versus the outside, because it can be quite humbling. Who wants to believe that a hectic life is caused even in part, by a frenzied mind? After all, it's easier to believe that your life is hectic because of your circumstances, schedule, and responsibilities. If you have the humility to admit, however, I love the word however, it's like a fancy way to say but, that this message is true, it can be enormously helpful because while you have little control over your outer environment, you do have the capacity to change from the inside out. And you know what? This is taking me right back to Greg McGowan's book, The Essentialist, Essentialism, sorry. I'm an essentialist in progress. I'm a grasshopper. I'm a green, white belt of a grasshopper, but I'm still identifying as an essentialist because the essentialist is not going to have nearly as many moments of outer world chaos. Why? Because they prioritize with the priority. Remember, we talked about that's not a plural word. The essentialist has learned and practices honing in only on what is ultimately important. Even stuff that's less important but still important, they drop it like a hot rock and they focus it so they don't really experience this very much. And again, I'm a white belt, a mere grasshopper in the experience, but I'm coming together with it. And then Richard Carlson, PhD, brings up John Kabat-Zinn, who you all know I love. He's another one I'd love to have lunch with. And his book, Wherever You Go, There You Are, which I also own, which is amazing. I mean, basically, it's a book on mindfulness, and which again is not to be confused with meditation. Sometimes you hear it called mindfulness meditation, but it's not meditation in the sense of the traditional sense is what I want to say, because there are in meditation there's transcendental and there's lying down ones and sitting ones and standing ones and river ones and mountain ones and walking ones, or all these different things, and there's mantras and creating a thought vacuum, which is absolutely not about. It's not about emptying your thoughts at all. If it in fact it embraces the monkey mind, and that's how it quiets down more quickly. But the way John Kabat-Zinn taps into it here, I actually did a video not that long ago on mindfulness meditation to go, because that's what it is. And for those of us in the Fast Mind Club, you know, honest to goodness, you have a better chance of seeing the good Lord himself than emptying this mind of thoughts. It's just not going to happen on this day. And so his whole book is really about that. And so he says, you know, about just being. In fact, John Kabat-Zinn himself, he says this also on a YouTube that I love. It's the one with Anderson Cooper. And he's talking to, you know, the listeners of it and of the video. And he says, you know, if you're thinking that mindfulness is, you know, yet something else to add to your to-go list, speaking of overwhelm and tight schedules, if it feels to you like something to add to your to-go list, just don't do it. You're not ready. You're not ready, because mindfulness is about being, and being doesn't take any time or cost any money for that, and you can't do it wrong. Bonus. And so Richard Carlson says, consider for a moment the essence of this title. I'm just going to repeat it. John Kabat-Zinn's Wherever You Go, There You Are. It correctly suggests that if you are nervous, hurried, and disorganized in one home, you'll find a way to recreate a similar set of facts wherever you go. And I also like this because Richard Carlson took it to another level, because wherever you go, literally, like right now, I'm on my back deck in the beautiful sunshine in the spring, if you want to call it that, in Vermont, but the buds are up and it's I like it brisk like this and everything. But here I'm in the moment. You say, well, you're doing a podcast. Yes, but I'm in the moment with you doing the podcast. I'm not thinking about anything else, just you. And after I get done with the podcast, I'm going to go mindfully do something else. I might kind of get the planters ready. You know, it's a little, probably got another week or weekend, maybe. It's Mother's Day coming up. I know these air a little later, but to get them ready and mindfully do something else out in this beautiful weather. But Richard Carlson also talked about, you know, I'm talking about physically being present, mentally in the physical, right? And also when we allow, and the word is allow, our minds to go to that nervous place, um, you know, that can, like, I had a very simple medical procedure done this morning. It wasn't a big deal at all. Though it wasn't a big deal, the hospital thing, I think, throws a lot of people. No one likes it. And I had to really focus on, okay, this is just a maintenance thing, in, out, there you go. And I had to kind of like stop my mind, because it tried. What if, you know, this result, I have no reason to think that anything is gonna be wrong, and even if I did, what help does that do now? I'm healthy, last than you know, so, and it's easy because of the environment, the hospital environment. It's a sick environment, right? People who mostly the people are in there, are any, along the spectrum of sick to almost done, right? And I was sort of aware of a low level anxiety there, and I had to talk back to it. I really had to work at talking back to it for a little bit. I was probably about 20 minutes, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Part of that was also there was a really bad car accident on the way home too that kind of uh that was kind of something too, but I worked to talk back to it because those were all thoughts, and if I allowed anxious what if thinking over a procedure that probably was fine, I was going to then feel anxious, right? And so that's the whole thing. So Richard Carlson really brought that up. So when we do that, we leave the gorgeous scenery. So driving home, I drove through farms. There's a detour because of that accident. I drove through these beautiful farms. It's a beautiful sunny day. Cows are just lounging around. It was looked like a 3D Vermont postcard, with the green mountains in the background. So I could either be nervous, anxious. I'm not saying it was easy. I really did have to talk back to it this morning. Hospitals just ugh. And so it took me a little bit, but I'm like taking look at the red barns. I always love to watch the ones that are inches from falling down and nobody cares. They just kind of keep rolling. And yeah, so when we allow ourselves to go to that place, the mind and then the feelings follow. And so Richard asks us, like he talks about the title, right? And a title sort of asks us to kind of question ourselves. He says, what comes first, a calm mind or a calm life? Now, obviously, as mind crafters, you know the answer to that without a bat and an eyelash, right? Obviously, the calm mind leads to a calm life. If you think about Kabat-Zinn's title, right, the answer, while difficult to admit, is obvious. A calm mind precedes a more peaceful outer life. In other words, if your life seems overwhelming, the best place to start your improvement is with your own mind. Perhaps you need a break or a change of pace. Maybe you need a little more time for yourself. Maybe you need to spend less time watching TV and a little more time reading helpful books. Maybe think about learning, if you want to do a meditation. That's not my thing, but it's like movies or food or something. If they're certainly good for you. I'm more of a mindfulness person. Plus, there's no reason you can't do both. And actually, if you're meditating, there's a little overlap there because you're being mindful, right? You just might want more structure, and that's fine. There's a ton of those on the internet. You can close your eyes and they're guided meditation, but really, whatever it takes to get yourself out of that frenzied mind, out of that chaotic mind, out of that overwhelmed inner life, because that's the only way your outer life is going to experience any kind of calm. That's just the straight up facts. Because as within, so without. That's it. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the gorgeous northern Vermont. I'm looking at it off my back deck. Absolutely beautiful. Have a mindful day.